have the 160 people who are on that flight who are also, in a way, cheering me on, because it's my responsibility to live on with life.
Mercedes had discovered the motivation to begin rebuilding her life.
From that point forward was just live the best life and don't feel guilty for it. Be happy, find happiness, enjoy every single day. Whatever comes my way, find joy out of it.
Mercedes overcame her trauma mainly on her own. But not everyone who survives a plane crash is so lucky. Many need professional help.
You have to have a counselor. You have to have somebody to talk to help you through it.
A major part of therapy is explaining to people, despite the intense pain they're going through, despite the intense limitations on their functioning that they may be experiencing at the moment, that they don't have to live with this for the rest of their life. There are ways to resolve it and to move on.
And with the help of counseling, the crew members of the Sioux City crash have managed to turn their lives around with remarkable results.
For me, going through something like this turned into a blessing. You kind of throw the garbage to the side, and it's like your life is more pure. It's like you focus on the good things. It gives you an appreciation of life that you would have never had, having not had this experience.
For Denny Fitch, the turning point came when he met the wife of a passenger who had died in the crash.
And I spoke to her in her ear and said, "Doris, I am so sorry I could not save your husband." And she pushed me back, and it was a lovely lady, and she said, "Bull. God wanted him. Let it go." And that was my crossover. So that was a bridge I needed, because I couldn't be set free by anybody else who wasn't directly involved in that accident.
This is the radar tracking of the flight when we went going into Sioux City.
Another way survivors can make sense of their lives is by passing on the lessons they've learned.
It's therapy. The more you talk about it, the more you can accept what happened. And it's therapy for me to stand up in front of a group of people and tell them what happened, so they can understand the way I feel, maybe, and maybe they can deal with their problems, deal with their tragedies.
But I am so thankful that I survived in order to share this message with you, because I know.
Mercedes Ramirez Johnson also gives talks about the lessons she's learned from surviving her crash.
But if I can make other people's lives more meaningful, then all of these nights that I spent at the hospital thinking, why me? Why us? Why am I here? Why am I still alive? It all makes sense now.
Her crash was caused by avoidable mistakes, and her talks aim to increase awareness of safety in the workplace.
If that can help just save one other person from having a major accident at work, then more good can come out of this plane crash, and more lives can be saved because of it.
One of the things that a catastrophic incident can bring to your attention is a greater appreciation for life, that you took things for granted. You go back into everyday life and things take on a greater vividness. You feel a greater sense of appreciation. You value them more. And I suppose for some people that may fade after a period of time, and for other people, it never really leaves them.
Mercedes and the survivors of the Sioux City crash now live life with a newfound purpose. But for some, surviving a plane crash can lead to an even more profound transformation. On January 13th, 1982, Air Florida Flight 90 crashed in Washington, D.C. The survivors desperately struggled to escape the sub-zero waters of the Potomac River. One of them was Kelly Duncan Moore.
I started just like slapping at the water, and that's when, just the terror set in, because I thought, I'm going under. I couldn't hold on anymore. I thought I was going to die.
But as she battled in the freezing water to escape drowning, Kelly was about to experience something that would change her life forever. Kelly Duncan Moore was a 22-year-old happy-go-lucky girl from Miami. She'd been an Air Florida flight attendant for 2 years without incident. Then, following a plane crash in Washington, D.C. in 1982, she was fighting for her life, frantically clinging to the plane's wreckage.
It was the worst thing. The cold was so intense that I just started thinking, I'm going to freeze to death. It hurts to be that cold. I couldn't hold on anymore. In my mind, I'm thinking, I've got to fight, I've got to keep going, I've got to keep moving. And I started thinking, I'm going to die. I'm going to die because I can't do this much longer.
As she struggled to stay afloat, Kelly realized she was being watched by onlookers, unable to help.
I became aware of people that were up on the bridge that we had hit, and I remember thinking, somebody needs to help us. Everybody's watching this and nobody's doing anything. It was just terrifying to think that people were going to watch us die.
Kelly had never been religious before, but she now felt a spiritual presence watching over her.
That was the first time ever that I really remember feeling God's presence. And as crazy and as out of control as the whole thing felt, I felt that God was watching it and that he was totally aware of everything that was happening.
After almost half an hour in the freezing water, a helicopter was finally able to reach her.
I just reached my hand up. My arm kind of went through the loop, and I don't know how I got it around my back, but I was just holding on to it, and then it just lifted me out. Got my serving apron on, and my pantyhose were all torn, and I'm kind of spinning around. They brought me to the shore, and really the last thing I can really remember are just a bunch of hands standing there grabbing me in. And that was the point that I thought, I can relax.
Kelly was rushed to the hospital, but she had no idea what had happened to her.
I was in intensive care, and there was a TV somewhere in the distance. I heard them say Air Florida, and I thought, wow, that's so weird that they're talking about Air Florida on national TV. And I realized they're talking about our airplane. And they started giving facts and talking about all the people that they were still searching for. And that's when I was just devastated. I mean, that was just terrible to hear it.
Soon, though, she was to have another defining encounter with God, this time after being approached by one of her nurses.
This is a picture of another one of my heroes. This is a picture of Ann Anderson. She was the nurse that came in and told me about Jesus for the first time. But when I was checking out of the hospital a couple days after meeting her, she actually gave me her own Bible. He has you in his loving, tender hands, Ann. And so she gave me that. That was a very special thing.
And if you go through an event where you are certain that you're doomed, and you're preparing for your death because you don't see any way out, and then at the last minute you're rescued, one way to make meaning of that is that there was some divine intervention. And that's the only explanation you can see for how you beat the odds and how you managed to survive.
But while a newfound faith in religion was the cornerstone of Kelly Duncan Moore's recovery, it offered nothing to Julia Ferganchik, a 30-year-old doctoral student from Arizona, after she survived a plane crash. June 1999, Little Rock, Arkansas. Flight 1420 crashes during a violent thunderstorm. 134 people survive. 11 die. Julia escaped by climbing through a crack in the ceiling of the burning aircraft.
As soon as I saw the flames, I just imagined the plane blowing up. That's what happens in movies when things catch on fire. They blow up. And so all of a sudden there was this panic to get out of the plane, and as quickly as we could. I knew there were people dying as soon as the fire broke out. The smoke from the plane was so heavy And when the wind would shift and it would come in our direction, it was impossible to breathe. Lightning was still striking, the hail was falling,